YouTube, Collards back here with you, and today I'm preparing my items to cook for Easter. Alright, so we're gonna start this series of videos out with my greens, the preparation of my greens, right? So I've went through, these were not bagged, these were individual leaves. I got them at a pretty good price, of course, because they came from Walmart. I find that the better quality of greens comes from your health food stores. Don't want to mention them, but that's generally where I get my best greens from. These are collards. You can do mixed collards, mustards, turnips. You can mix them. I typically use what I can find. So I went ahead and sliced these. I rolled these up. I rolled these up in a cigar and I sliced them widthwise, and then I put them in water. Very dirty greens. They are grown on the ground. Sometimes these leaves get so big that they're laying in the mud, right? So here's what we're gonna do. You see I got some of the stems in there. I usually don't throw these away. I don't chop them all up. I'll take a large amount of them, chop them down and put them in there. I like cooking my greens down to where they're soft. I don't want any crunch. If you like crunching yours, then stop a bit earlier. So again, there's nothing else in this water. I can show you the water's turned green. That's from the chlorophyll. But in this water is also dirt. This is why you wash your greens. I'll do this process about 4 or 5 times. This is my first time. So here's what I do. I've got some white distilled vinegar. You can use apple cider. And I've got some salt. Any salt will work. So I'm gonna hit them heavy with some salt. Not for flavor. This is for the scrubbing process, right? And then I'm gonna go with some vinegar. Yes, they're gonna smell vinegary right now, but you won't smell this when we get to cooking. Get in there and I start to work them around. We're gonna knock a lot of that mud off, right? How we know it's working? Because we're gonna pull these greens back and look down in the water. We're gonna agitate them. Yes, you're gonna see some green. Just remember, collard greens have a coating on them, and this coating has derived over time from the environments that they're grown in. Helps repel bugs. We're not breaking that coating down. The cooking process does that, but we do want to get that mud off these greens that may be stuck to that coating. All right? Yes, it smells salty. It smells vinegary. It's not going to hurt them. I find that too, some of this also helps to break down some of those cell walls. Remember, these greens and any other greens like them are composed of about, I believe it's somewhere in the 90% water range, right? When you cook that water out, that's when we start getting to the flavor. I'm going to show you how we do that. This series of video for Easter will be about 3 or 4 videos. I'm going to put these greens on. I'm going to do some potato salad. I'm going to do some dirty rice. And then I will be prepping after that my my protein of choice. I believe I've got some lamb breast in there. They still got the rib sections on, so we're going to treat them just like we would a pork rib. Really fatty. I'm going to show you guys how to get rid of that lammy gaminess. So, alright, so I like to pull this back and look, water is getting murkier. That means it's getting cleaner, right? But we got to do this 3 or 4 or 5 times, however many times until my water runs clear. And I'm not going to keep you here do each 4 or 5 of those times, but I want to show you my process. I've never gotten this on camera before. Even if you get the bagged greens, you still want to wash them, even though the bag says they've been washed. Now, I've known people who haven't cut their greens, right? I cut mine down. I do have kids eating these. My kids love greens. I want to make sure these have a good mouthy texture. I don't want them getting no long strands, right? These are fibrous. It's one of the reasons why you eat these. Good for your system. Now, you cook yours the way you cook yours. But I hope that I can give you a basis on which to start. My greens, probably not going to be the healthiest thing you find. They're going to have some seasoning, some salt. They will be cooked in some water seasoned with a smoked meat, ham hock, turkey, what have you. I will also add some fat. Greens, whether it's spinach, whether it's whatever, need some fat. I'll add that in the form of bacon grease or whatever I can find. I believe I got some pork lard, right? I usually use beef tallow if I have it. Trust me, you need it. You don't just want these floating in water. Some people may do that for a healthier take. I don't. And then I'll show you the general seasonings that I use. So I'll bring you guys back probably for the last wash. I don't want you guys sitting here just watching these. As I massage these, that water's got a lot greener and a lot dirtier. That's what you're trying to get out of there. You don't want to eat that. Give my hands a slight wash, and I'll see you guys here in a little bit. Nothing too hard. Nothing really too hard. Alright, here are my collard greens. You can see that water is clean. I'm letting it drain out really slowly. These are going to sit here for a while. Again, they are clean. They're going to sit here while I prepare this moisture that these greens are going to go into, aka pot liquor. It is my humble opinion that you know you're dealing with a good bowl of greens when you can just sit and drink that pot liquor. Let me show you what I have to go ahead and prepare this pot liquor. So again, real simple recipe. You might find 10,000 different ways to make collard greens or greens in general. I've got a diced medium yellow onion. I've got smashed whole cloves of garlic, and I've got a jalapeno that I'm going to float when I get all my liquid together. Then I've got better than bouillon. You can replace this with chicken stock or beef stock. You can even use veggie stock, right? So let's get this over here going with me. All right, and of course, I told you guys we got to season that liquid. These are some smoked ham hocks I got, of course, from Walmart. So currently, I have I've got about a quarter stick of butter in here, along with some chosen avocado oil. I'm going to get that going to saute these onions off. Again, there's nothing that I'm doing here that you can't do. So, all right, and we're going to get those onions in there. Not looking to really put any color on these. Just going to be looking to get them a bit softened because I don't want them to all soften in the water. Might make the cook a bit longer. Alright, notice I have not added any salt besides what's in that butter yet. I like to add salt towards the end of the cooking process with these greens. You might find people who like to cook their greens down only until there's a little bit of bite left. I don't necessarily like that. Alright, I like cooking mine down until they're really soft and tender. Now, different greens require different cooking times. Different greens you wouldn't want to be eating raw. That's for another video. These collard greens, you can eat them any way you see fit. Alright? So we're going to let these saute. And then I'm going to start getting, so this is known as an aromatic. Then I'm going to go ahead and put my garlic in here. I'll get my ham hock in here. Again, that ham hock is going to also add some saltiness. It's going to add some smokiness to the broth. And then we'll get this pot liquor made up, and then I'll start showing you guys how I introduce those greens. And then the hardest part of this cook will be the time in the pot, right? Because again, I like to take mine longer than most. I don't really want that hard structure left to my greens. It's personal preference. Stay tuned. Alright, those yellow onions are about where I'd like them. I'm going to go ahead and get my crushed garlic in here. Again, I leave these whole simply because of the cooking duration. I'll have these greens on. And you'll notice too that these garlic cloves actually help in the seasoning process of this pot liquor. Now, throughout the process, if my water starts dwindling down, I'll simply add more. Again, we are trying to watch the sodium consumption, so I will be adding water. And then towards the end, you'll see me do a few different things. I'll introduce vinegar, not a lot, maybe a capful, if that. I might introduce some fish sauce for umami. That's a thing that not everybody does. However, it brings out, it boldens the flavor of these greens. and it helps with that meatiness of it, right? So again, I've got my garlic cloves in there. Let's give that a mix. Not looking to cook these off. Yeah, the only thing I got in here is those yellow onions, garlic cloves, bit of butter, and some of that avocado oil. I told you guys I use fat when I'm cooking my greens, and that's pretty much any green. Even if I'm doing canned green beans, you're going to see me use some version of this, right? So then we're also going to go in, this is that better than beef bouillon. I'll work on getting the rest of this off that spoon, off the camera. Remember, that's also, this is a low sodium version, right? So again, we're trying to watch that salt content. Get it in there, but again, we're building this pot liquor. You could use chicken. I've made my own stocks before and done it, right? But for this, we're going to use that better than beef bouillon and some water. This is about 3 liters to be exact. It's already smelling good. Alright, now, that's going to be enough for now. Again, if this dwindles down, I'll add a bit more water. I'm going to bring my fire up. See that piece of garlic floating in there? Those will eventually break down, soften up over time. And I'm going to put one of these Ham Hocks in there. It's going to add some additional flavor to this. There's a lot of fat coming off the Ham Hock. That's going to permeate that water. And then over time, this Ham Hock is going to break down. I'll go in towards the end of this, pull those bones out, as well as take that meat, dice it up. I like to have pieces of protein strewn throughout my greens. Doesn't matter what type of greens they are. I'm going to float. I do mean float. Watch that. Floating a jalapeno. You want something hotter? Put it in there. This would be the time. And then I'm going to go in with my 2 bay leaves. And for now, I'm going to let this come to a hard rolling boil. It's going to take 15-20 minutes. Alright, and that's simply because of the amount of water I've used. I'll bring you guys back to show you the next step. Stay tuned. Alright, here's how we're looking. It's only been about 20 minutes, 25 minutes. I'm going to go ahead. You see we still got the floater in there, that jalapeno. If you want more heat, more flavor, you can take and slice that jalapeno open. I'm going to go with handfuls of greens. Now, you'll notice that after all the cooking that I'm going to do to these and any other greens, remember I mentioned that they're 99% water, right? So you'll see your water level rise and then start falling. That flavor is going to start condensing, and you'll notice that once I fill this pot up, once they start cooking, they will cook down because of the water content. So don't worry if you can't fit all the greens in your pot at one time. Alright, that's just one load. I'll bring you guys back when I have them all loaded in. Other than that, this is the simplest part of this cook. Stay tuned. Alright, all the greens are here in my pot. The only thing I'm going to do, so I've got about a medium-high heat going on. Once this comes to a boil, I'm going to turn it down to a simmer and put a top on this. And I might cock the lid. I'll show you guys that later. Stay tuned. Alright, the greens have been going for about 45 minutes to an hour. Haven't done anything, I've placed the top on, I just took the top off. Again, I told you guys I'm going to introduce some fat. This is pork lard. Going in with it. Again, a lot of the greens that I cook, I'm going to use some type of fat. Not only does it assist in that pot liquor, it gives it some body, but it also helps with the tenderization of these greens. Again, I don't like a meaty green. I don't want it to have much texture. I like mine cooked down. I like going with a little bit more. So I remember my grandmother used to cook these. She would keep a tub of bacon fat, bacon grease. Of course it tastes like bacon, but it makes everything that you use it with taste awesome. Alright? So again, these are not quite done yet for my liking. There's that piece of meat in there. You'll see that jalapeno in there still floating around. Alright. And then now, from here, put that top back on, and then I'm going to let this come back up to a simmer and let it cook. I would say I got it probably another hour or so, and it's good with me. Stay tuned. Alright, we are back. We're going to go ahead and start putting in our flavorings. Again, this is that fish sauce. Just a little bit. It's not going to taste like fish. Still got a bit more cooking to do. A little paprika. Alright. Tony Ceteris. Red chili pepper flakes. Bit of seasoned salt. And give this a mix and let it keep simmering. Stay tuned. Alright, here's my finished product. I just finished getting that ham hock out of here. You can see I went ahead and chopped up all that meat. It was fall off the bone tender. Came right off the bone along. I leave that skin on, not the skin, but the outer portion of that hock that's been smoked because it's good smoky flavor. Let's clear up because that steam is getting to the lens. So then I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to leave it here on the stove until this cools down completely. And then I'm going to stick it in my fridge. One of the most debated things with eating soups or greens or any other dish that takes a long time to simmer over the stove is that most people say it tastes better the next day. I don't know if that's true. However, I can absolutely tell you with greens that I feel like it's true. So again, I'm going to turn it off. It's me turning the fire off. I've tasted the broth. It tastes pretty good. I went ahead, I put a cap full of vinegar in there, the same vinegar that I washed them with. It helps cuts. Believe it or not, it is acidic, right? And we're changing the pH level, but it also helps cut some of that earthiness. It helps cut some of that that tanginess out of those greens. So these will sit here, top on, cool. Put them into my fridge, and then I'll pull these back out Easter afternoon or Easter morning. Get them back on the stove to reheat, and then tonight and then the rest of tomorrow, I will be cooking the rest of my Easter meal. And I think the only thing that I'm going to actually cook on Easter will be that lamb. Stay tuned.